Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today we are having our Mi Casita focus group. Our topic tonight is around renting. Um, we have Spanish interpretation being brought to us tonight by the Tucson Language Justice Collective. Thank you all for being here and for allowing us to record and share these videos also with all of our Spanish speakers out there. We really, really appreciate it. If you are unfamiliar with that process, you're gonna click this globe icon and you'll either hear us in English or you'll hear the Spanish interpretation when you click on the Spanish globe version. Okay, so moving along. So welcome, we have just a quick agenda. We'll go through a quick slide presentation. We'll have a live poll and then we'll have about an hour for discussion. So I hope you all come with questions, and we're asking that everyone please try to speak slowly to assist our Spanish interpreters. In the interest of time, try to not to use the chat until we're ready. We won't be answering questions during the presentation, so please try to hold all your questions till the end. Please turn on your cameras during the discussion. That's really helpful for everyone. And again, we're going to be respectful of everyone, regardless of their level of experience. There's no wrong questions, or, some of us have a lot of experience renting and some of us have zero experience. So we're going to try to be respectful of everyone and where they're at. Okay. And we'll do our best to answer. We have some awesome experts with us in the room. We'll do our best to answer questions. So the Mi Casita Introductions is a project that's a collaboration between myself with Cuadro and the Pima County Community Land Trust and the City of Tucson. We have myself and Wesley Fawcett-Cree with us. DJ and Maggie, can you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Gigi Eldridge. I'm project developer with the Pima County Community Land Trust, and thank you all for participating in the workshops. We're really happy to see you.
And I'm Maggie Amaldateas, also with the Pima County Community Land Trust, and welcome all. It's going to be fun today.
And we also have a special guest, Rachel Spitz. Could you please introduce
Hi,
yourself?
everyone. My name is Rachel, and I work at SERI, which is the Sonora Environmental Research Institute in Tucson. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, everyone. And we are being funded by the Vitalis Foundation and the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. So also thank you to our very generous partners as well. So our project goals, we're really focused on trying to use these casitas in some ways, affordable housing or wealth generation, also for, creating housing stability for homeowners by creating income properties, creating shared housing costs through intergenerational or extended family living, and working towards the creation of mixed income neighborhoods by offering a variety of housing types. And we hope by that, empowering our neighbors and ourselves to develop our properties ourselves, that will hopefully be keeping flippers out of our market and allowing residents to benefit from the possibilities of real estate investment. So we have some of our survey results here. We've gone over these before. This is where we're at in our process. We've had our finance focus group, our permitting focus group, our building, and now we're gonna go on to rentals. So where we're at in the process, hopefully you've built your casita and or are close to building it, and now you're ready to think about renting it and how you're gonna maybe start paying off the loan that you took to build the casita. So again, that's just more of our process. So we'll just start, kind of with the basics, which rental path are you going to choose? There's a lot of options out there. I'm sure we're well aware. A lot of people have talked about wanting to rent to friends and family, which is kind of informal. You may or may not even have your friends or family sign a lease agreement. I mean, it could be very, very informal, depending on the person. But then once you get into long-term rentals and even short-term rentals, you start having to think about, I'm hosting now strangers, people I don't know. How do I protect myself? How do I protect them? And Section 8 rentals, again, as a whole other specialty with additional paperwork and, just different rules. So,
Yeah, I ate a lot of pizza.
so basically, we don't have time to go into, you can get super in the weeds with rental pro forma and trying to figure out how to maximize the return on your investment and be very exhaustive in your expenses. But the basics are, like when you're looking at any kind of profit and loss, what's my income? What are my expenses? And so to the best of your ability, you're going to try to map out for yourself how much you think you're going to be spending on the rental. Of course, the biggest cost is going to be for most of us who are going to have to finance an ADU. That's your first biggest cost monthly, right? Is the cost of the debt service of that mortgage or refi or loan, whatever you took out. So, you're gonna, let's say you want to try to rent your casita for, I put an example here, $750 a month. You're gonna, a debt service, you can do quick mortgage calculators on Zillow. There's a ton of great information for looking at comps for rentals on Zillow. You can look in your neighborhood and kind of see how much a 1-bedroom is going for, how much a 2-bedroom is going for. You can also find, they also have on Zillow, it's just a great resource for everything, for sale, for rent, for figuring out, again, what your debt service is going to look like for your mortgage, depending on how much you need to finance. So I just went on Zillow and did their little calculator, I assume you have a 30-year fixed mortgage, $75,000 to build your casita at a 5.4 interest rate, and your debt service is going to be somewhere around $590 a month. So then let's say, with considering it's a brand new building, you're not going to have too much, anticipated, maintenance costs in the beginning, but you might have insurance, you might have, other expenses that come up. So you want to plan a little bit for that too. So then you obviously then you subtract your, what you're charging per month minus all your expenses, and you might and you start to see really quickly that rentals are not as profitable as they seem, especially if you're carrying a mortgage. It is actually pretty difficult to make a ton of, unless you start doing multiple rentals, right? If you just have one or two, it's not going to be something you can quit your job over, but it is supplemental income, and it can help, pay extra bills or, save or plan for the future. So, but again, as you're thinking about building your casita, that's why all these variables kind of tie together. As you're thinking about building your casita, obviously the less you can spend, the higher your profit's going to be. So, tax deductible. Okay, and then I just wanted to mention that there are a lot of rental costs that are tax deductible. So that's why, again, we mentioned earlier when you're kind of doing your financial planning for your casita, and as you're going through this process, you do want to keep a running tab of all of your receipts for everything you're spending because of depreciation. So you want to, let your accountant know how much you spent on the project, so then they can start counting that depreciation for your property. You can also count the interest you pay on any mortgage or, anything you financed, or even credit cards if you've bought materials but again, you want to clear all these things with your accountant. We're not special. I'm not an accountant. This is just a very basic overview of what could potentially be tax deductible as you start renting. Obviously any repairs, but there's nuances between a repair versus an improvement. If you're doing like a short-term rental, appliances and furnishings could potentially be tax deductible. Your property tax, if you're paying directly for any utilities, your insurance. And again, just remember to always save your receipts and always consult with your tax accountant or whoever you're working with to make sure, you know, you've claimed as many of the credits as you can. And then really the main agreement, you know, that needs to be made between you, yourself, as the lease owner. We're trying not to use the word landlord because it's a bit archaic, but the lease owner and the tenant is the lease agreement. This document pretty much outlines everything. So the dates, you know, the dates of the lease, you know, the term, your rental amounts, you know, if you're collecting a security deposit, that all has to get laid out in writing. Pretty much any agreements you want between yourself as a property owner and a tenant, you need to have it all in writing. And you have to kind of back check this against the Fair Housing Act and the Arizona tenant and, you know, tenant and lease owner agreements statewide, or laws statewide, so that you're not asking anything of your tenant that is above and beyond what the, you know, the state laws will allow you to do. But typically it's recommended that you do a walkthrough inspection. You know, you have some form of documentation of a checklist or photos that shows how the property was before you rented it and what condition it was in. So then, you know, you can reasonably expect your tenant to keep the property in more or less the same condition. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel put in the Arizona Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, which is an important document to go through. And then again, all that will be outlined, how you want that walkthrough process to go through. If you want a final walkthrough at the end, that'll all be laid out in the lease agreement. And again, it's just important so that you're all on the same page and you can't the more basically it's all this is about keeping yourself safe if you were ever in the event of litigation, right? So that it's not your word against theirs, that you have some form of documentation and everyone's clear at the beginning. And the renewal of the lease, that'll be specified in the lease agreement. What your stance is on tenant improvements, that'll be laid out. The utilities, whether or not you're covering them, will be laid out. And then what to do in the event of damages, and then how, again, the care and use of your property. And then hopefully you'll have something in there about mediation and arbitration if worst case scenario, you end up in arbitration. We have some great resources to share with you all from the Arizona Association of Realtors. There's a sample rental application. That's another big piece of you as a property owner. What you're responsible for is to screen your own clients. So again, some people do background checks, some people get really into it, you know. Again, if you don't know the person, you're just, you know, you can have a rental application if you want. Lease agreements, there's an example here of what that could look like and what the language would be. You can find a ton of these online, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot out there that's great. A lot of like LegalZoom even, and websites that have, you know, stuff that's pretty ready to go. And here's a move in and move out condition report also. And here's some common lease addendums that go along with leases. This bed bug addendum, lead paint disclosure, mold notification, insurance advisory, crime free and pool addendum, because as a landlord, you know, you're basically part of your responsibilities, or as a lease owner, is to provide safe and healthy housing, you know, so that's a really important responsibility. And the Fair Housing Act, we took this from SERI's website. It came in 1968. It was signed, and it makes it illegal for people to discriminate in any aspect based on someone's race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. And there's 7 federally protected classes. So if you have any questions about that, or if you as a tenant feel like your rights are being violated, there's a bunch of really great organizations. SERI as well as the Southwest Fair Housing Council, who all will help you answer questions and kind of help navigate you through those processes. Rachel, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So yeah, our program, it's a newer program and it's HUD funded. And we provide classes in English and Spanish to learn about the basics of fair housing, as well as when we go to community outreach events and meetings in the community, we do also hand out print material on education. And also we have a complaint inquiry where if you call in, you can file a fair housing complaint inquiry. And then we actually work with Southwest Fair Housing Council to then process your complaint inquiry, and then they handle the investigation side. I did want to give some good tips for you guys in regards to marketing and advertising for when you are renting out your place. So for example, things in your ad that you would not want to say, which would be considered discriminatory under the Fair Housing Act, would be you can't say things like no children allowed. You can't have advertisements that say no wheelchairs. You can't say things like Christian home, or things like must be fluent in English, saying things like no Jews or no dogs allowed, or either something where you're saying white family home. At the end, I can also give some more details of what you can say, since I'm sure you're kind of curious about that as well. But yeah, I just want to give you that little brief information in regards to advertising.
Thank you, Rachel. That's
Yeah.
really, really great. Really
Yeah.
good things to think about. Okay, so, and then the Arizona Landlord and Tenant Act, it's a pretty hefty document. There's a bunch of also resources online, some great one and two pagers we found that help synthesize this into some more bullet points. But it is good to read through the whole thing, just to know kind of, again, it just clearly outlines what your responsibilities are as the lease owner and what your responsibilities are as the tenant. And this one also kind of goes through, some of the very common areas where you might find yourself in a dispute, which is, how do I get my, when does the tenant need, by how many days do you have before you need to give the tenant back their security deposit, and how much more can you charge per rent of the security deposit? Like there are limitations on all those things, so it's all outlined there. And this was the 3-pager we found on the Arizona Association of Realtors website, which was really helpful because it kind of takes that big document and synthesizes it down into kind of the main bullet points and questions. And then there's also on their website an owner advisory. And as far as the rights of tenants, I mean, just to quickly, again, bullet point through those. Obviously, the tenant is responsible for reading all of the agreements, the lease agreements, and all documents provided. Providing the security deposit, which is limited to 1.5 times the rent. They're responsible for paying the rent and maintaining, the rental unit. You more or less, when you sign the lease agreement, you're pretty much agreeing that you're going to leave it in the condition you found it. And providing the lease owner access for things like repairs, or if there's an emergency or a court order, you do have to give 2 days notification for repairs as the lease owner. And the tenant obviously has a right to habitable unit. And if, again, but there's a lot of nuances too in the law with, how many days they have to repair and how, so again, you just want to consult legal, call Southwest Fair Housing, the Alliance, they'll, call Sari, they'll help you through all those questions. So if you have very specific detailed questions, and then the lease owner is responsible for, obviously following all the laws, fair housing and disability laws, qualifying the tenant, you're the one who's responsible for screening your own applicants, security deposits and fees, that all needs to be outlined. You're obviously ultimately responsible for the repairs and the condition of the property. And, you have to give that 2 days notice for repairs, or if you want to access the property. And then, termination of the lease, you know, if you have to go to, you know, if you have, hopefully you won't have to go through an eviction, but all, again, all that will get outlined in your lease agreement. And you have to notify your tenant if for whatever reason you end up in foreclosure. And insurance, again, you're going to be responsible for carrying some form of renter's insurance. And you're going to want to discuss that, what best insurance will work for you and your situation with your insurance carrier. And again, all of this can change depending on which rental path you choose. So, you know, it might be different for a short term versus a long term. And then I just wanted to quickly plug the Section 8 program, because it is a really cool program that we have that really is about having housing choice in the city of Tucson. And the city of Tucson really needs Section 8 landlords. We're hoping some way we can partner this program with them. And the rates for Section 8 are actually starting to be more competitive with market rate. They actually are allowed to charge 110% of the fair market rent. So the rents are slightly higher now. So for a studio, it's going $732. One bedroom, they break it down by unit type. So whether you have 1 or 2 or 3, 4 bedroom. And we have their website, and they also have a bunch of information, slide decks, and you know, all kinds of pamphlets if you want to become either a Section 8 lease owner, or if you want to do it the tenant route. So, and these are the fair market values for rent and home rent limits. So you can see they're a little bit lower than what's currently allowed with Section 8. Okay, and then we'll just move on to the live poll.
Okay, yeah, I'll put the link in the chat right now, or you can just type it in. But yeah, it's just a quick few question poll to help us get a good idea of what people think on certain aspects of this. It'll just help us develop our programming. I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of look at the live results as they come in. But if everyone who has the capability, I know if you're on your phone, it's more difficult, to just kind of let us know where you're at, what you're thinking, how renting fits into your larger casita idea and dreams. And yeah, and everything that we kind of, you know, we do these like broad overviews for our presentation. So anything that didn't make sense, I know Maggie knows a lot about the fair market value and kind of figuring out how to like what's considered affordable rent right now. It feels like that's a moving target at these days. So a little information about that might be interesting. But yeah, after we do this poll, we'll open it up to questions. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, great. So yeah, the first question, we just wanted some basic information about how people were thinking about rental, the idea of rental fitting in. So yeah, what we've seen so far is there's the income side, and then there's the renting to friends and family. And then, yeah, boosting the selection of affordable housing in Tucson. So that's all awesome to see those. Go to the next slide. Rental income, a key factor in your decision to build a casita. Overwhelming is yes. I know a lot of people are factoring that in, their ability to actually pay for their casita in the long run. Are you hoping to rent to primarily family members or people you know? It's pretty much split right there, which is interesting. Are you interested in renting your casita to Section 8 voucher holders? So yeah, we have a big mix there as well. Would you consider renting your project as an affordable housing unit exchange for a development incentive, i.e. a zoning incentive or a fee waiver? So this is something we've observed in other cities that have passed ADU ordinances. This can sometimes occur. And so, yeah, we're just kind of gauging interest on this to bring that back to the city one day and show that, you know, this might help solve a potential like deficit or lack of eligible homes. If yes, how long would you be willing to commit to an affordable rental unit? So most people are thinking about a short term, others a bit longer. I think that's the last slide. Yeah. All right, thank you all so much for taking the time to do that. I'm gonna stop sharing. And yeah, maybe we can look at the prompts, and also we have several people here on the call who have experience being lease owners and renting to folks, some on a small scale, some on a larger scale. So maybe we could interview or introduce everyone and just kind of say what your experience is. Yeah, we could start with Shay and Vado, because I know you both have experience.
Yeah. So yeah, hi everyone, I'm Shay. I have a casita. I've been renting. I kind of fell into renting not intentionally. So I've had to learn a lot just on the fly and have been doing it mostly informally for a while. But then as I started to rent to people I didn't know, started figuring out the lease agreement and other things, then started consulting with my tax advisor, making sure I was counting every potential deduction. So I've learned a lot along the way, but I do it at a very small scale. I'd say I barely break even. I always have rented affordably my units for an affordable price, and in my mind, I see it as a long-term investment because I've been blessed enough to be in a position where, you know, someday I'll pay off my mortgages and it'll be pure profit at that point. But for right now, I'm not dependent on that income. So I'm again seeing it more as a long-term investment, but not everyone's in that position. So, you know, we're all coming at it, I think, from different perspectives and angles. So, but that's been my experience. It's been great. I very much see the tenant landlord relationship as a relationship. And I think that's what we have as a small lease owner, or, you know, is that it's very much to me a back and forth. You know, I'm willing to accommodate my tenants, but I also expect them to take care of my place and to be respectful. And, you know, it's very much I feel a give and take. And in general, I'm not a property management company, so I don't generally charge fees of any sort. But again, I'm always just surprised by how, even though sometimes people are late, like even up to 2 or 3 weeks, they somehow manage to catch back up, and then we get back in our groove again, and it's always worked out. So I've been very blessed. I've never had to be in arbitration or anything like that, but it is scary when you, and I've mostly rented to people I know. So there was that too, some level of accountability, but I think it would be a different situation if I rented to people I didn't know. So I don't have as much of that experience.
Otto, do you want to talk about your renting?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same as Shay. I feel like it's like a small house, and it's in my property. And I think the key for those as a parent of 2 kids it's who's renting the little space, because it's like it's what they say. If it's a friend, I think it feels kind of like safe for everybody there, in terms like kind of like leave the kids sometimes. Like, I mean, my kids, they're not young anymore, but like it's easy sometimes if you have someone that you know a little bit, because you don't have to deal with a lot of like the background check and all this stuff. So it gets kind of like tricky that way, because I mean, I'm not saying I don't want to rent it to everybody, but it's like if you have people that need a house, like before you put it in the market, it's much easier, because that way you have at least like a little bit of resource before you go into the market, and it make it a kind of like a community rental instead of like a commercial rental. And I mean, like it's it's easy for me because I can fix things, but it's tricky because you have to like, if you rent it and something broke, like you have to like hire someone to fix it, and you just keep in mind that you have to have a budget for that all the time, like because it's gonna happen no matter what. Like it's just the AC, I mean, a lot of the issues, like it's just keep in mind that.
Thank you, Vado. Maggie, did you want to talk a little bit about your rental experience?
Sure. So, I'm the executive director of the Pima County Community Land Trust. So we do, affordable rentals from where I work, and then I have a few personal rentals. So on the personal side, I guess one of the things that I think people need to consider is doing background checks and doing credit checks. I I think sometimes where I've had worse experience has been people that I know, or or the relatives of people that I know. And you kind of feel a little abused, and you kind of forego all that. I kind of got smarter a few years ago, and because I used to be a loan officer, so I'm like, I'm going to vet people like they're applying for a loan, because I do very affordable rent, and so it's like, I didn't want to have to, my car broke down and I can't pay you. Well, I go, I have to pay my mortgage, and so those are the types of things. And so I think it's really important to still vet people humanely, and one of the things I really look at is, do people have some kind of a savings? Because even if you're only renting it for $500 and it's affordable, but they always have a zero in their account and they've got NSFs, that car breakdown is going to affect you. And so I especially if you are going to have debt and you need to pay that mortgage. And so I really think that you need to talk to people about those things. I really believe in education. Tenants need to learn how to be better tenants, and landlords need to learn how to be better landlords too. I think it's also really important to plan for like what you have. Like I have a house that I was really blessed, and I built it way back in 99, 2000. So it's 22 years old. I know that air conditioning is going to die, and so I need to start saving for that, because it's going to die soon. And so sometimes, it's a lot of hits at the same time, and you're like, how am I going to pay for all of this? Because the $1,000 in rent for this house, that I'm getting, it's covering the mortgage. And so what's extra? So you have to really plan for that. And as far as the affordable rentals that we have, I mean, we do have a property manager, because we have 21 units now for the land trust. And so that's, it becomes, when you're running it as a business, there are a lot more rules and laws that you have to take into consideration, and you want to make sure that somebody's helping you do that. So if you ever get to the point where you have lots of rentals, you may want to have a property manager, but for the most part, yeah. And I agree with Shay. It's like, I'm not making any money, but I figured that these people are paying my mortgage. So ultimately relieving me of the debt, and and as values go up, then that's going to be yours. You know, that equity in your home is going to be yours. So it's another way of looking at it. In many times you can, you know, put your money, if you have money or cash or whatever, and you put it in the bank, you know, you're going to get nothing. You may get a better return on your investment with rentals.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. I think I saw Jessica's hand up and then Bill.
So my experience runs the entire gamut. When I bought my first home, it was in a different place. And when I moved, I rented my home out. And I was really young and I just rented to someone, like, I think more out of desperation. And this person had like a really great, they were a nurse, a traveling nurse, and they wanted to settle down. And there was like this really great story to go with it. And she kept telling me, oh, let's meet for, so I can give you the deposit and the first month. It was like the first month and the deposit to move in. And like I would show up at our arranged meet time and then she'd be like, oh, I was there, I didn't see you, or oh, my car broke down. Like there was always something. And so the day came and I let her move in, which was a huge mistake. So yeah, be careful, because there are people who, so it turns out that this person is a professional con artist, and that's what they did. So they would just go from house to house to house. And even if you go through, so I never received a dime, and even going through the whole eviction process, it took 3 months, even though they never paid $1 in rent. So be very, very careful. The other thing that I have experience with is short-term rentals on like our VRBO and Airbnb. And with all of the private equity firms coming in, and what we have now is these corporations that are setting up vacation rental businesses. And so we have a lot of those currently in Tucson. So the market for vacation rentals is completely flooded. So I have 2 friends who have their homes listed on Airbnb. Usually they have like, a lot of bookings, and they both have not had any bookings. And they're in, and one had to go to long-term rental. And then the other one is also newly listed as a long-term rental, because they're not able to get any reservations, even though they have like really great ratings on Airbnb. So for the long term, Zillow is like a really, really great tool, because what Zillow does is for your free. So you can list your home with pictures, with video, you can schedule your open houses, all of that on Zillow. And Zillow actually goes through and you can accept the applications through Zillow. Applications you accept through Zillow come with the credit report and the criminal report. And so those are like really interesting. So when my friend went to long-term rental, he asked me to help. So a lot of it is, common sense. So like if someone has if they have a long history of like late payments, like, yeah, they could be a great person and yeah, they could be doing great things. But if they have a pattern, like trust the pattern, trust the history. And of course, like if someone has like, especially if you have children or, in my friend's case, like, a single woman, like someone with a criminal, history, if it's like violent things, then, that might not be a great fit for your situation, especially when you're living so, like footsteps away from someone. The other thing I will say is if you have an older home, so older home being 10 years or more, I would highly recommend looking into home warranty programs. And so the home warranty programs are really great. It's an annual fee that you pay. And, some of them you can pick and choose what it covers. But it'll cover like a lot. So like if you have an appliance breakdown or the air conditioner breakdown or, any of these things, it's like usually like a $50 or $75 you know, trip fee to come out and assess what the issue is. And if they cannot be repaired, then it will be replaced. And so if really to, because you can, when it comes to annual expenses like your insurance and home warranty, because it's an annual expense, but really you can calculate how much that costs over a 12-month period, and you can, you know, start to bank that money away so that you always have, it's not like a huge expense, it's not a surprise expense, but that you're always prepared for ahead of time for those annual expenses. And so between the um, finding, you know, going through the eviction process and all of that for the other home and renting that out long term, having the Airbnbs and renting my house when I had a house in Tucson, and then helping my friend with their rentals. So I've been like kind of in the rental housing space for like 20 years now. So I've pretty much seen it all. So if anyone has any questions, definitely feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Jessica. That was super helpful, very informative. Thank you so much.
I lowered Bill's hand by accident, but he's next.
I also have a rental. I haven't been in it that long, but I did a lot of research, and just a couple things I have for advice is there's property managers that I know a property manager that actually helped me with the lease. I didn't have to hire them to be our property manager, but they helped me with the lease, which helped out a lot. He had a basic lease, and then we went through it and did little changes here and there, which suited my position. I paid him a flat fee, and then I had a lease that fit my property, and I knew it was legit because it was a good property manager. Another thing, they talked about Zillow. There's a lot of websites and apps that help landlords, be it small landlords or massive landlords with a lot of properties. And I did a lot of research, went through Consumer Reports, went through a lot of different websites to look at the best one. I went with Avail, which is it's online and it's on my phone, and I can manage my property through my phone anytime, accept payments, send notices. They do leases themselves. Also, I did go with them with the lease. And with Avail, I can pick and choose what services I want from them, and it's free. So it's similar, I guess, to Zillow. So I would suggest anybody that goes out that's going to do this, with, you know, find the app that works best for you. There's a lot out there. You have a lot of reviews on the different apps. The one thing that I suggest to you is don't be in a hurry to rent once you get done. I know if you just bought a rental, or if you're just finishing doing a remodel or something like that, don't be in a big hurry to rent it. I mean, you want to do this as fast as possible to get your money back, but again, don't take the first person. I did credit checks and criminal background checks, and they had to pay for it. If somebody's serious about wanting to rent, they'll pay for it themselves. So I concur with Maggie 100%. Doesn't matter if you know the person or not. You know, if it costs $35 for them to rent it, they're serious about owning your property, and they aren't worried about having a background check and the credit check. They'll pay for it. I mean, you can pay for it yourself, but if you have, I had 45 people who came to rent my property, and probably 30 of them didn't want to pay for the credit check or the background check. And so they were just taken out right off the bat. And then the people that did pay for it, they tell me things ahead of time, and it turns out that the credit check and or the background check did not occur with what they were telling me. So after that, they're being dishonest. So they're taken out right off the bat. So definitely, I don't care if you know the person, unless they're your very close family members. Even then, you might not know anything about that. So I always suggest doing a credit check and background did have a question about section 8, but I don't know if that's appropriate now, so I'll let you take it back, Jay, if you like.
Bill, we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. I heard the Avail, was that what the app you're using is called?
Yes, it's called Avail, A-V-A-I-L.
Okay, Avail. So yeah, there's property management apps out there and you're using the Avail one that's free. That's what I heard. And sounds really great. And it's also a way to receive and exchange payment electronically, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
They can do the background checks and the
Okay.
applications.
And I heard correctly that you have your tenants or when you're screening people, you have them pay for the background check?
You
Or-
can choose that in the app itself. You can say, do they pay for it or do you pay for it?
Okay, so the app allows you to choose
Yeah.
if the tenant can, and you feel like that helps you determine if people are more serious, basically
Yeah,
serious
if they're just-
applicants?
If they're just kicking tires, then they won't, or if they have something bad in their background and they don't want you to see it, they won't pay for it. So I'm not gonna pay for it then, because I had enough people that were willing to pay for it. So, you know, if they're serious and they want my place, then that it helped me screen out the 46 people. We pare it down. 'Cause I only needed one.
Yeah.
And so that helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
And then if I could ask a question about section 8 when you guys are taking questions about that.
Yeah, we'll try to answer a section 8 question, but I'm not an expert, so we'll do our best. Gigi and Maggie might be able to fill in more.
What, are you able to rent section 8 to a family member that's already on section 8? You're trying to move them out of their section 8 property and, you know, because it's, of course, I would like to just let my family member move in for free, but I can't afford that. We're spending $30,000 on the seat itself, so I have to pay it back somehow. So I didn't know if that was possible to be able to rent to a family member in section 8.
I think you can. I'm not a section 8 guru either, but if they have a voucher, so the issue right now is that there are a lot of people who have vouchers and they can't find housing that accepts the voucher. So I guess what you would be doing is saying, I want this person, and I think you can. I mean, there's other criteria to section 8 as far as the size of the house and how many people will inhabit it. So if you're building a casita and there's like 5 people in the household, maybe they wouldn't allow that. I don't know. Gigi, I don't know if you know more about that, but you know, the other thing about section 8 is that, you know, they have to inspect your property and things like that. So
Yeah, I think as long as they have, just what you said, as long as they have the voucher and the property itself meets the allowable criteria, then I don't think a family relationship is a problem.
I'm gonna have to interject. I'm an attorney, actually. I do family law, but I have rentals and family members have asked me if they can rent section 8. And the answer, the last time I had checked with section 8 is the answer is no. So that may have changed because of the shortage, but my understanding is you can't.
Did they
Rent
already
to
have the
relative.
voucher? Oh, sorry.
Even if they have, they could have possibly been grandfathered in because years ago, they, like we're talking 70s, people, I don't think they had the requirement that you couldn't be a family member, etc. But from what I understand, the current vouchers, like if you want to rent right now to a relative, unless they've been there like 20 years, 30 years already, the answer is you cannot, there can't be a family relationship.
Okay.
It
So
even
can I
says on
actually
the,
interject? I actually work in housing with section 8.
Oh, awesome, Angela, yes.
So the attorney, I'm sorry, I missed your name. You're right, with one exception. if there is somebody with a disability and a reasonable accommodation is requested, it may be granted on a case-by-case basis, but it still has to meet all of the other requirements.
And when you say a reasonable accommodation, what would they need to do to show that?
So there is a form, it's very short and simple. The tenant's doctor or psychiatrist, somebody who can attest to the disability, fills out part of it. I think it's like 3 or 4 pages, but really basic questions. And then the tenant also fills out a portion of it, or somebody on their behalf if there's extenuating circumstances. And it just talks about what the disability is, how they would benefit from having this, whatever the request is. Most of the ones that I've done over the last several years have been about having somebody move in. So a family member caregiver would move in. So now they qualify for a 2-bedroom because their caregiver also needs a bedroom.
And
that's
also,
another thing.
are these approvals, are they done like by a committee or it's by a caseworker?
You know, that's a really good question. As far as I know, it's just somebody at Section 8. Where I used to work, I would submit them to another coworker. She was our point of contact. Those would then go to Section 8, and then we would get an email back that said, okay, approved. Here's the new voucher amount.
So, hi, I'm Geraldine, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, I'm Geraldine, and so with Section 8, the reasonable accommodation does go to a 504 committee.
Okay,
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then that committee, I'm assuming that committee would then issue out a letter to the applicant or the participant that says you have been approved? Is that how it works?
Yes, that is correct. It's either approved or denied.
Okay, but they would get a letter from Section 8, the participant, right?
That is correct.
Okay,
So if I could.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Shay and Wesley, if you guys could put this on the list of things we should lobby for, because I don't see, I'm gonna get on my soapbox again. There should be no, if they want people to get into affordable housing and you're trying to help family members, I can't think of a reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. And if there is a reason, I'm not sure what it would be. That, like, we're trying to cheat the city or cheat Section 8. Again, there's another thing that I think we should put on a list to lobby for, because that should be changed, because that's really silly. I have a mother-in-law that's Section 8 housing in a terrible part of town, crime-ridden, lives in a slumlord apartment. I'm trying to build this casita to help her move in. I can't afford it without getting some type of rent, but I don't want to charge her rent on fixed low income. So it's, again.
Agreed.
I wholeheartedly agree, Bill. I don't think they should have, Section 8 should have these restrictions, since we are in I would have thought, because of the shortage, that exceptions would be made irrespective of whether a person has a disability. I mean, if someone has a house available and you've got a relative that's on a voucher, why can't they move in? Can someone from Section 8 tell me what can be done to change that rule?
Well, like I said, Wesley and Shay, I know we have a very long list of things we are lobbying for. I think that's a big one we should put down. And I mean, again, I'll fight tooth and nail to try to get some of these changes that we've been talking about the last 3 months.
Geraldine, do you have any comment? Like, I would think it would be some sort of a conflict. I'm sure that, the Section 8 list is long and people have been on that list forever. So I don't know how that decision is made. Like, is it prioritized by how long they've been on the waiting list or whatever? I don't know. Jerry?
No, it's not. And yeah, so I used to work Section 8, and that's one of the things, is that you could not rent to a family member because of the fact that it was a conflict of interest. I've not been in Section 8 now for a couple of years, but I still have friends that work there. So I can definitely find out for you if that is still true and correct.
Thank
And
you,
what
Jo.
can be done to change that rule? Because that rule does need to be changed. And it's been like that for a while now.
Correct.
Geraldine, could you also put your contact information for us, please, in the chat? It would be great to follow up with you on this. We did reach out to HCD, but they're very busy right now. So we were hoping to have one of the officers on the call, or staff, but definitely it's something, yeah, it could be, again, a barrier for a lot of people who are considering to rent to family. But I don't know how easy, because it's a federal program.
Right.
My guess is that something like that is going to be very difficult to change, if I could guess.
That and yeah, that's true, because it is HUD funded. So there is a lot of rules and regulations that need to be followed as well.
Well, big things get started by little people. So, that's one thing. I mean, again, it might be a futile effort, but I would be willing to fight for those changes, even if it doesn't benefit me in the long run. It should be changed.
Well, and I think that's just one of the really important things about this process, is that it does bring to light these things that we can put on a list and try to work towards. And that's why this input is so valuable.
I know our congressmen around in the Tucson area. I would think all of them would be in favor of working towards this. So.
Well, while we have so many brilliant minds on this call, like how incredible that with everyone we could kind of piece together something of an answer. But a question was asked earlier in the chat about receiving cash as payment for rental. Does anyone have experience of this or know any red flags of why you wouldn't want to do that or would want to do that?
Cash is king.
I've definitely had lease owners that I paid only in cash, and it
as a landlady, or what did we call lease homeowner? I can think of a lot of reasons. You can hide it, but we're doing everything above board. But yeah, you can actually pay cash. It's just now the danger for the home, the lessor, it's lessor or lessee, is that how do you making sure you document that, because there's no paper trail. So they can say they gave you $500 when they gave you only $4 or whatever, and if you don't document that. So that would be the danger. But cash is a good thing.
Yeah, for me personally, I've been trying to move away from cash, because I have this problem of at the end of the year when I'm trying to do my taxes and I'm like, wait, how much did I get? And I just have a deposit line item with no memo and no reference to who paid when. There's been years where I'm like, I think I got paid that month. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. It's just really hard to keep track of it for me. It's amazing how much you forget. I forget things in a year's time. I've forgotten.
Well, the really cool thing, depending on where you bank, that I've just discovered, and that maybe everybody knows this, but because how we were talking about saving receipts, and I actually last year got audited by the state Department of Revenue for my taxes. They asked for everything in regards to my federal tax return, and I guess it's just something that my tax preparer said that the state is doing. But it was really scary, because they asked me for all of the receipts, for all of my deduction, everything I do. And I'm also a real estate agent, so I'm like, wee. And so I kind of called them up and I said, hey, I really don't keep receipts. I also have 2 knee surgeries, and they don't give you receipts, but you have it in your bank, right? Through payment. And so you can actually go into your online banking account, and you can download all of the transactions into an Excel spreadsheet. And that was acceptable to the Department of Revenue. instead of like keeping every receipt, because I don't ever keep receipts, but you know, I mean, obviously if you have a Home Depot one, you want to keep those or things like that, but so that makes life a little bit easier as a tip.
With the Avail, and I'm sure it's with every other landlord application, every payment, they can do a payment with a credit card and it charges them an extra 1 or 2%. But they usually just give me a cashier's check, or they have given me cash, and I can just record that on the app right on the phone. And so I can look back over the year and I can see exactly when they paid, what they paid. And the app actually charges them late fee if it goes. You can choose how many days late you want to charge. If it's 5 or 10 days, you can charge a $50 fee or whatever fee you want to charge. So having those apps, again, I'm not selling the Avail. I'm not a representative of Avail or anything. That's what I use. I'm sure other apps are the same way.
And I know people sometimes get worried about having the extra income, but I have to say in my case, the Schedule C, like every year, worked in my favor. And there were some years where if an improvement was made or something to the house, where there was enough to offset my personal tax liability. So for the most part, like if you have good financial advice, tax advice, definitely. I just throw my receipts in I have one envelope where I collect all of my receipts, no matter what it is. It goes into one envelope. I have a one envelope system, and at the end of the year, I kind of separate them all. And then in my email, like now there's you can get digital receipts. And so I keep a folder in my email where I put, all of those types of anything that's potentially tax deductible, whether it's a donation, whether it's a medical expense, or whether it's a business expense. I just put it all in my tax deductible email folder. Just remember, you have to keep those records for 7 years. So at any point in time, you can get audited. And if you get audited, sometimes it's not just 1 year. So you have to have 7 years of files of proof of all of these things at all times, just to keep yourself protected, so that you have that peace of mind, so that when you do get audited, it's not a scary thing because you just turn over everything you have. And then I have so I have another envelope system where every year I have one of those really large legal size envelopes, and I just write the year on it, and everything from that year just goes in that envelope, and I throw it in a drawer. And when I do my taxes at the beginning of a year, I'll just go through and shred everything, that was from the 8th year. And so the systems for keeping track of these things, it doesn't have to be fancy. But I do encourage everyone to do it because there's nothing like having peace of mind.
I agree with that. Did anybody else I know people had emailed us a little bit leading up to this one, and gave me the impression they had some specific questions to ask. The floor is open. You can raise your hand in the Zoom app or put something in the chat. But yeah, we have a lot of great minds.
Smith, I see your hand. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You're on mute still. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah, you're still muted. There you go.
There I go. Hello, everybody. I've been partaking in this presentation since the very beginning. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very interesting. There's a couple of things that I just been keeping notes and listening during the whole thing, during the whole presentation, starting way back when. Today, everybody's talking about renting and being able to write off depreciation. There's so much to that. You're going to need a book and 4 hours to learn everything there is, especially on the financial end of this. There's something called recapture depreciation, which You don't want to go there, but they get the money back. And that's something that you should consider when you try to get into the landlord business. I've been a leaseholder or a lease owner or a landlord for 50 years. And I've got a lot of experience with tenants. And there's so much to learn here. I can't emphasize it enough. I used to have a mobile home park. I had a friend and we owned a mobile home park. And we'd go out there every month on the 1st and we'd collect rent in cash from all our tenants. Well, lo and behold, we went out there one day and one of the tenants stole the house. He hooked up the mobile home and he went down the road. And we're standing there looking at each other with this empty pad where the mobile home was. It's not all fun and games, kids. And we let the mobile home go. So there are real bad stories like that. As far as the tenant, the Residential Landlord Tenant Act, it's been my, well, if you go to court and the lawyer, or I'm sorry, the judge, if your little lease agreement doesn't say Arizona on it, throw it out. And so that's something that you should, when you go to the internet and you start looking for lease agreements, make sure it's an Arizona lease agreement, because that'll really get you in trouble. And they really get you in court and they don't screw around with that. Also, the Arizona Realtors website, that's a tremendous tool for all this stuff. I had something here on the background check and I can't recall what it was, but it has something to say. And as far as the Section 8, renting to a family member, that is, without a doubt, that's a conflict of interest. And it eliminates sweetheart deals, money laundering. And that's law's been there for a very long time. And it'd be very difficult to overturn that. You just can't talk them into it. Cash, you guys talking about taking cash for rent. Well, I'm of the school of thought that cash is king as well. I love cash. And if you wanted to put $100 in your pocket and take the rest of it, put it in the bank and pretend like that $100 is just easy, free money, I would suggest that you don't do that, because you have to prove the income and your tenant has to prove the payment. You have to give them receipts. If Arizona, the state of Arizona wants to look at your books, look at your landlord tenant books, and there's $100 missing every month, it's not that hard to figure out that you're skimming. So if you're due to cash deal, be honest with it. And I was Maggie, just when the Arizona tax guy called you up, was that a random audit?
No, well, yeah. So apparently my accountant said that they are doing that a lot. That the Department of Revenue is just, you know, and the thing is, so they gave me, so the good thing is they have everything on spreadsheets, right?
Yeah.
And I gave them everything and I had to figure out how to PDF it all in one PDF. It was because they like have very specific, and they never got back to me. And this is like, we're talking over a year ago, and that they, you know, said that they would get back to me in 90 days. And so I don't know if they'll ever, my accountant said they'll never call you. They're just doing that. So I don't know.
Maybe they're trying to make you nervous. I
don't know. I mean, if it was a year that I had every imaginable expense, you know, and my mom had passed away. So maybe it was, you know, I had some income that I had to declare from her estate, but I also had like knee surgeries and like tons of expenses that all documentable. So I'm like going, I don't know. I was kind of worried this year. I'm like, are they going to call me?
Yeah.
But
if there's something that you did, like red flag something,
oh yeah, no,
they do, and then they decide to audit you. You have to find out what it is that they're after, and they usually tell you.
Yeah.
But in my experience, an audit by the state of Arizona is horrible.
Well,
If you fix the sink, they want a receipt for the washer, and they'll there with you. They'll sit there with you for 4 days if that's what you want to do. And nobody keeps bookwork that nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they did say that they would accept the spreadsheet because it's a downloaded from my bank. And
Yeah,
then I correlated it with the actual bank statement. So it was the spreadsheet that you kind of, you kind of put it in,
Mhm.
the way I do it, you put it in categories and then you document it more with an actual bank statement that, so
Mhm.
I had everything. I was like a huge file. So, but yeah, I was a little nervous about I don't keep receipts.
Well,
because I
you
just
don't, I don't keep receipts,
don't.
but I don't have to. What
Yeah.
I'm starting to go towards this Venmo thing. And they keep records for you. They Venmo you $1,000 for rent.
Yeah.
And that's there. You can look it up anytime you want to. And it's great proof and they accept it. You don't even have to touch the cash. You don't have to get a check you have to worry about. You don't have to run to the bank. And I'm starting to go that direction and I really enjoy it.
Well, I don't worry about the income because everybody zells me, right? And so, but it's
Okay.
it's the expense part of it. Like even the, my knee replacement surgeries and whatever it would say Banner Health or it'd say the hospital or whatever it says on your bank statement. I know what it was for. It wasn't even all that much, but anyways, I figured I could, if they really wanted to come after me, I would go to all of those vendors and get the receipts that I needed.
Just
and
grab your accountant.
Yeah. And I did keep
That's all you need.
But I do keep like the Home Depot stuff because you can buy Home Depot, you can buy, cleaning supplies at Home Depot. So then I do keep those, but then they fade. So you got to make copies of those. So I also do electronic. I do try to do electronic receipts from those places because they, at least you can file those. So that makes life easier and I usually opt to do that. But
Good. That's all I've got. This is fun. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
What's
thank
your
Randy.
first name again? Is it Smith?
Randy.
Randy Smith.
Yep.
Thank you so much. That's, again, I love hearing from people who've been doing this a long time. I get a lot out of these conversations as well, and it's really, really cool. I feel the same. I'm getting more nervous as I'm sitting here. I'm just like, oh man, it is so important to keep good records. It's just, yeah.
And it's important to keep your house tied down. So,
Yeah, that's another wrinkle.
yeah.
There was another comment in the chat about the city. Vicky says city needs to help first-time landlords if they want to do an ADU. So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts or ideas or comments about does the city offer anything to first-time landlords? Any sort of support? Is that something that's ever existed that we could segue to the ADU conversation?
They're doing essential workers now. They give essential workers a couple of bucks to help them with their down payments on purchasing homes.
Yeah, that one's exciting. That's through the IDA. I sit on that board, and that one's, but that one is a first-time home buyer program as well, I believe. And but as far as the last program I saw that the city had, they had during COVID, a landlord incentive program, a Section 8 landlord incentive program, but I think it ended. I think the money for that ran out. But they were doing, who were they offering? They were giving people up to, I think it was almost up to 2 months worth of rent in advance for people who wanted to sign up to help kind of with some of the delays in the processing. When you first sign up for Section 8, that's the hardest time, I think, because you can experience a delay in payment. But what I've heard is once you get in the system and everything's established, then everything kind of runs more smooth. I haven't talked to too many, Section 8 leaseholders. My dad does it, so I've talked to him and picked his brain a little bit. It is tough. I feel like for anyone doing it at a small scale, like I feel like you have to have more than, I don't know, people who've been doing this longer, correct me if I'm wrong, but more than at least like 20 units for you to be doing it kind of full time. It seems like anything less than 20 units, you're not really going to be able to make enough profit to leave your job, basically. It seems like you kind of have to have quite a few units before you're going to be really, really profitable and be able to do it full time. But so like for people who are doing it, like my dad or myself, you know, it's kind of just supplemental income. It's not, you know, I'm not able to, you know, but it is, again, it's a long-term investment, and eventually you're going to pay off, you know, that home. And again, it's like you have equity also now in those homes, which you can pull out at any time. And there's a lot of, for me, it's been amazing to have assets. And I'm like, oh, I have a net worth. And like, you know, I've had to learn a lot of these things about, you know, and there's a lot I still don't understand, like you're saying, Randy, about depreciation and how that works, and how you, once you can get into the rabbit hole, once you start thinking about doing it professionally, there's just so many tax nuances. And again, you just need a really good accountant to help guide you through all the different ways you can claim things and write off things. And some things, you know, you can do over time, or you can do them up front. And again, it just gets very complex very quickly, especially when it comes to the tax part. But again, I appreciate everyone.
You can even
sharing.
deduct mileage.
Yeah, you can count.
Yeah, which I never think of. I'm like, it's literally up the street. I don't know how you would do mileage for an ADU though. I don't think you can, well, unless you like go to Home Depot or something, but you can't say I go collect rent and charge 10 miles. You take the very long, a roundabout route.
We have a hand up. Therese has their hand up, or did they just?
Hi,
Oh, hi.
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You had asked earlier if the city had put in place anybody to help support folks that are trying to build an ADU as well as convert. And I can tell you, because I've been chasing this for about 6 weeks now, that they're just getting just putting it together. And I did get finally some really good support from folks in planning and development services. And I can maybe try to attach the thing that they sent me. They have a little worksheet if you want to build a casita. And that's all well and good. And it's really pretty, and it's got a nice format. But for, you know, I'm not super intelligent. I didn't go to Harvard, but it's just, it's not really helpful. And, or it hasn't been for me. And so I got back to them to say, would they, you know, be willing to make a time with me and sit down? And they would, but maybe it'd be more efficient if they worked with you all at Mi Casa, or Casita, excuse me, to do one of these programs. So that's part one. Can I say something else? Part two is, you know, they're supposed to have, by the ordinance that was passed, financial aid available for low-income people who are trying to convert existing spaces. They're supposed to grandfather them, and they're supposed to help them, but they can't even address, or I haven't been successful, I should say, getting the answers to converting an existing space into a fully permitted ADU space. And as far as the money goes, my understanding is right now there are 3 people who are going through the permitting process, and I don't know whether they're asking for money or not, or, you know, seeking financial aid or not. But I think we need to figure that out. I mean, it would be really good, since they're going to be reviewing whether to keep this going or not in October, and it's going to be June soon. It's like, what are they going to review if people can't do it? So I'm really trying to be patient and understand, but I'm not super wealthy, and I can't build one. I'm converting an old shitty shed, an old shed into a studio so that I can rent my home and pay for my mortgage. So the other sidebar I just wanted to mention to folks who are all about renting long-term is the short-term rental market, more commonly known as Airbnb, is a viable option to supplement your income. But I agree with Shay, it's not intended to be, well, there are some on the Airbnb platform that have 60 or 80 properties, but in my case, I'll just say it's, it supplements my income and it allows me to pay the mortgage every month. So I think that's a consideration when we talk about ADUs. It's not just about, property management and writing leases and all that. Short-term rental is much easier to keep track of. It's a lot more money. And it's lucrative. So anyway, I'll yield the floor. But it would really be, I would really be interested in getting some help. I did get Lauren Seamus, if folks are trying to get help in the planning and development services. That person was very responsive. They answered, when I finally did get their email, they answered right away with some really, with this form, but the form is like, if you want to build, it's not for average person. It's pretty, it looks good in probably a presentation to, city council who don't know what we're talking about, but for usage, it's not helpful. In my case, I don't find, I'm struggling. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, Shay can take that. But our next focus group is on unpermitted structures, and we're going to have someone from the city. So we urge you to go to that one on June 7th.
Yeah. I would just say quickly, we don't have too much time, but to be fair, the city doesn't have a very, and I'd say no city across the US, actually, it's not just our city. They don't have there's no real good processes for how you permit structures that have been built illegally, right? We don't even know how many illegal units are on the market because there's no record of them, but it's a common occurrence. It happens all the time, every day. But the problem is that once you've built it, the inspectors have no way to look behind the walls, right? They have no way to see the plumbing.
Well, that's what a grandfather is.
Or the foundation, so then then the city gets really worried about liability and how do we actually make this safe, or how can we say that this has been built safely if we never saw it happen and never saw it go up? So that's the conundrum that they're always in. And to be fair, nobody has figured out this process yet. How do you?
So
I feel like
there's no liability waiver that the homeowner can sign saying, you know what I mean? I will not hold the city responsible. I want to be grandfathered in, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to, if it's more appropriate to talk about this at the next one, I will, but.
Yeah, no, that's my solution. That's what I've suggested to them also several times.
I'm right there with you, Shay, as usual.
Why can't you just have people sign a waiver so that we can just have this over with
and move on
and easily and move on? Especially if the structure's been standing for more than 5 years. It's like, come on, if it's been up for more,
it gets frustrating, and that's why people do the illegal stuff.
Sorry, go ahead, Dionisa.
Okay, real quick question for Jessica, the accountant, or anybody out there. When you mentioned the mileage, I had understood that the mileage could not be claimed if you weren't like a full-timer, a rental property owner. I have a duplex and it's just supplemental income. I thought I couldn't claim the mileage, but maybe the accountant or someone out there can elaborate on that issue quickly.
So there are rules of like the percentage of your income that is coming from this activity. So there are rules like that. So another workaround to that is if you created like a separate entity, like an LLC, and you kept the activities that are going on with your rental in this LLC, then even though you are, if you're like a single member sole proprietor LLC, it makes it a little bit easier in some cases to to get through like all of the deductions, because now there's this other thing.
I get
Um,
it. I get it. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jessica.
Oh, no, that's it. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's just another avenue. So if you don't, so you'd still do a Schedule C. Again, you have to talk to your tax professional to see, there are so many ways to like legally structure these things. You could also establish a trust and put the LLC in a owned by the trust, and then you would file taxes completely separate from yours. So the trust is its own entity and it gets treated just like a person. So it has its own tax filings. So that those are a few different ways to do it.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
And lastly, if Rachel is still with us, I wanted to give Rachel another moment to kind of expand on the work Siri does. Maybe just really quickly, anything home related, Rachel.
Yes. So in regards to, we have a low/limited income loan and grant program for rainwater harvesting. If you're familiar with it, it's basically where you're able to have gutters attached to your roof, and then when every time it rains in Tucson, you can collect it either through a tank/cistern or either through passive design as well. So I'm going to provide in the chat our program. Income limits apply for the program, and you can either be a renter or home buyer, but also you can see that in regards to the chart that has the income limits and their the qualification requirements. We also host workshops, as mentioned, with fair housing. Workshop is a great place to start because David Sanabria, who is the program manager, you'll be able to meet him and learn about rainwater harvesting. And then I will also put our fair housing page in here as well, where you can see our upcoming classes.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. There's just so much collective knowledge here tonight. Did anyone else have any parting words or last minute questions?
I'm wondering if with Rachel, I know, Rachel, we're Zooming with you tomorrow for the fair housing class for counselors, but I'm wondering if we maybe can schedule something for this group, if anyone's interested, maybe. I'm thinking especially around advertising for your casita, because you can get in trouble.
Yeah,
Even saying things like, it's really close to this church or something. It's like there's very specifics on advertising.
Yeah, and definitely, I would love to do that. The specific class that we got approved by HUD, we go over what is fair housing, a little bit about the history. We also talk about examples of discrimination and what is prohibited. And we also go into a little bit, National Fair Housing Alliance has a lot of great statistics that I pulled that I also put into the report. And then we go over a little bit about different cases of discrimination that have actually happened and that have gone to trial. So yes, I would love to coordinate with you in regards to that. That'll be wonderful. And I think everyone would benefit from it.
And it's mostly landlords getting in trouble.
No worries. As somebody mentioned, it is the responsibility of both sides. But yes, the presentation we have is a great overview for everyone. So we'll follow up on that, Maggie. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that being said, we've hit 7:30. This was an amazing session. Always, my mind is just blown of how much knowledge is out there. Thanks again to our interpreters who have been doing live interpretation this whole time, and all the other lease owners who have, varying, such a wide breadth of experience that shared tonight, and everyone else who brought their expertise. So we will follow up with everyone via email. The presentation slides will be made available. You can email the Mi Casita ADU Gmail if you would like to have your information shared with the group. If you're open to people reaching out to you for more information or to pick your brain, we'll keep that within the group. And yeah, thank you all again. I'm gonna end the call.